Let's jump into things. So Claude for Mortgage Pros, what we're going to cover today is really an overview of Claude, what it actually does for your business. And then we're going to get into the differentiators of Claude. There's a few different products that Claude offers or Anthropic offers, Claude Cowork, Chat, and Code. And then some of the workflows that actually will be important or pertinent for you guys as mortgage pros. We'll do two specific workflows. And my name is Matt Shepard. I have been in the real estate prop tech space for 10 years now. I actually worked as a licensed loan originator at Kiavi, formerly Lending Home. And I started a company called Private Market earlier this year. And what I do is really come into real estate firms and really help them use AI to its fullest, including systems like Claude, like Gemini, like ChatGPT, and some automation as well. I put together these free webinars just to show people the power of Claude. If you guys ever need any follow-up assistance, I'm happy to help implement this into your workflow. So Claude is really becoming the de facto LLM for the professional, the enterprise, really. There's functions that make it agentic to work for you to accomplish goals. It actually reads, it writes, it reasons, and it does. But knowing when to use what is really the important thing. So most people are moving towards Claude as as the de facto enterprise enterprise system. So, and for mortgages specifically, you guys are knowledge workers. So a lot of your information is in documents, it's in context, it's in emails, might be in text messages, obviously a lot of phone calls. And that's what AI systems with repeatable ways to follow up help to do. And Claude does all those things in a really cohesive way, which we'll see in a minute. And obviously, you guys are salespeople. A lot of you are salespeople at the end of the day. So making sure that you stay ahead of borrowers, that you're giving them the best experience possible, and making sure you're following up with people is really important. So we'll dive into a couple of ways to do that in a little bit more detail. All right, 3 different ways to use Claude. So there's Claude Chat, Claude Cowork, and Claude Code. The ones that we're going to focus on today are Claude Chat and Cowork. Claude Code is more for coding software and creating custom apps, custom dashboards. Really helpful, but a little bit more difficult to implement in your day-to-day. Claude Chat and Claude Cowork are where we're going to live. And then within Claude Chat and Cowork, you're going to have a few different core fundamental things to learn. We'll double click on these. A project is a cohesive set of chats that all can communicate with each other. MCPs, these are connectors to other systems. And then skills, these are just repeatable workflows that you can use time and time again. And talk to Claude as a chat interface is what we're going to use, and then Cowork. And then really the distinguishing factor here, what I'd recommend everyone getting this kind of in your head is Claude Cowork, you're going to use that anytime you need to delegate a task. So when you need an actual deliverable, that's when you're going to use Claude Cowork. And Chat, that's when you're going to need a thinking partner, someone to kind of bounce things off of, like a brainstorming, a draft, for instance. I'm sure everyone's used ChatGPT for saying, hey, how can I follow up with this email or help me draft this email? That's when you're going to use it as a thinking partner, as the chat. But anytime you need an actual deliverable, you're going to jump into Cowork. And we'll go through like a use case here today. So again, Chat is for the work you'd kind of just ask about, and then Cowork is for the work you actually do yourself, like the deliverables here. Okay, so we're going to do Chat first, and we're going to jump into a demo of a specific workflow and actually using and packaging a skill for the mortgage space. And again, Chat is your thinking partner. It's for actually question, answer. Hey, how do I do this in a different way? Projects. Okay, so we're going to just jump into a demo, and I am currently in Claude, and you'll notice that Claude has these 3 tabs on the left. We have Chat, Cowork, and Code. And we're just going to do kind of a lay of the land and some of the important features within Claude Chat. So right now, we're going to focus specifically on Claude Chat. We have just the chat interface. We have a way to attach files and photos. We can add this to a specific project once we start typing. And then some of these other items like a skill or connector you want to include. Projects. So these are going to be a specific group of items that you want to chat with. If you guys just go and create a one-off chat, there's no way that they're going to be able to see or communicate or see different information between different chats unless they're in a specific project. So if you're typing and creating all these one-off chats, they don't talk to each other. So you can't really reference them across chat. So it's like, hey, what did I talk about? Or what was that email that I drafted to this specific client? they helped me draft a few weeks ago. If it's not in a project, you're not going to be able to reference it. But if it is in a project, then all the underlying chats you're able to reference within them. So what I recommend folks always doing is creating separate projects for any sort of domain you want to keep within itself. So for instance, it could be like an underwriting project where you have all the context across deals that you've done. Just really important to keep it all in one project. And you could have as many projects as you'd like. In this instance, I only have 4, but I've seen clients have like, dozens and dozens based off of different clients that they have a lot of different use cases for projects. Okay, so within the customize function in Claude, we have 2 core concepts and actually a third that's a little bit less pertinent, but connectors and skills. So connectors, these are usually through what they call MCP, the Model Context Protocol, which allows you to connect to all these different tools. And so it could be things like Gamma, which is a presentation maker, creates beautiful presentations, PDF and PowerPoint. It could be Gmail or Google Drive, all connecting to the system. And you're able to pull and reference from these different connectors directly into Claude to do a lot of functions. And it could be other things like an Apify, which is a scraper, a web scraper. So connectors are really important. You can always browse the connectors that are standardly available within Claude. If you don't see one that you want, just ask Claude if there's a publicly available MCP for it. And if there is, it'll actually be able to integrate it, even though it's not like the connector store directly. And then skills. So skills is really important concept. These are just repeatable things that you do all the time. What I always urge clients to do is create your own skills. So think about things, repeatable workflows that you do on a regular basis and create the skill yourself. And all you have to do is tell Claude, hey, I always follow up to borrowers, or I always send reminders to borrowers before we close on a specific day. Can you create a skill to help me do that? All sorts of use cases for skills. There's a lot of skills floating around the internet to reuse. But I always urge people to create your own skill because how you do things. And it's really important to just like do things your own way versus taking some random person off the internet's skill. And there's a lot of different thought processes around that, but that's what I recommend. So we're going to jump into one specific skill, which is a fix and flip underwriter skill. I created this and I said, hey, all these deals look the same. I want to make sure we're underwriting these deals the same, and then creating actually a pre-qualification if this deal is, fits in with the specific realm or a specific set of rules. So this is a fix and flip underwriter skill. And it says, hey, underwrite a fix and flip hard money loan using the rule of 70, 70, if it's 70%, the loan amount is under 70% of the ARV, then it's actually a pre-qualified loan. Use this skill whenever the user mentions a fix and flip deal, etc. There's different ways to invoke this skill, but you can either / command or just type it out manually, and then the system will pick it up. And then what this will do, it actually store the pre-qualification template. I say, hey, this is kind of what I need to see in a pre-qualification template. And then if you're a broker, I see a lot of brokers doing this. They have multiple rate sheets. So the rate sheet is rates from their different lenders that they work with. And you can actually include these different reference sheets within it. So this skill, when invoked, is going to go ahead and actually underwrite a fix and flip deal. It'll pull from the lender rate sheet. And then if it is pre-qualified, it'll create a pre-qual template. So, this is like a step that used to take a lot of time if you do this manually, but you can create this workflow in order to do this very easily. We're going to just run that workflow here. So all I need to do to invoke a skill is go / fix and flip underwriter. I've kicked off the skill. It's invoking it. It's pulling all the relevant details, and it'll actually, based off of those inputs, go through an analysis. I created this pre-qualification letter based off of a borrower, Sarah Mitchell in this case, for a specific property, just invoking the skill. So it actually goes through, it does the analysis for you, and it'll create that pre-qualification letter. So really cool. I've seen a lot of folks, it just takes a lot of time to create these underlying pre-qualification letters. Maybe you'll work with several lenders. You want to know which one is the best lender to work with. And this can help. You can get the idea. This is maybe a little bit oversimplified of an example, but you get the idea of, hey, if I have like several lenders, this person has this amount of um, that they want to put down. Are they going to be pre-qualified for the specific loan? So really easy to create that skill and invoke it, and then create, in this case, just like an underwriting flow with a pre-qualification, which is like that output or the reference that we put in. What I recommend clients do is actually mapping out all of the different flows that they go through, usually like a bundle of 6 standard workflows, and then just try to create a skill for each of them. And then anytime that you need to use it, you can go / and then use the skill. So that's kind of like that first, I would say, workflow that I will say people use is doing a skill or creating a skill. All right, so we're going to jump back into the presentation, and then we'll pivot into Cowork, which is a little bit more involved. It takes advantage of skills. It takes advantage of connectors in order to accomplish specific jobs. And this is where you can truly delegate to the system and offload a lot of your workflow to Claude. Okay, hopefully everyone has seen chat live demo, which we just did. Check. All right, so we're going to move into Cowork. And Cowork is it's a lot more advanced of a tool. And it's actually the agentic workflow. And what that allows you to do is kick off several different sub-agents. So it's almost like having I was using Cowork this morning, and it would spawn 6 different sub-agents to go accomplish a task. And it's like having 6 different ChatGPT sessions all happening at one time to accomplish your goals. And those goals could be anything. So Cowork is really a colleague who does the work. It's about delegating the work to someone else. And it's actually using underlying folder structure to accomplish that. I haven't seen that many people use Cowork very effectively, especially like the real estate business. So I think once you get this is a huge unlock. 3 patterns that make a good Cowork job it's multi-step. It's not going to be like a chat response. It should be like a multi-step. Hey, we do this, and then we do this, and then we do this. So the example is like triage a week of borrower emails into themes with example quotes. Or it could be go through my inbox and create a presentation or a report based off of what I need to do this week. It also should live in real files. So it should live in your inbox. It should live in like a Drive folder. And then it should span at least one tool, and ideally like several tools to actually facilitate. And then we can kind of backtrack from that like framework is the shape of a good prompt. So the prompt, again, Cowork is all about deliverables. So the way you shape the prompt is really important. And the shape of a good prompt falls into 3 separate layers. Like, what is the deliverable you're looking for? What do you want back from Cowork? So it could be like a 1-page client brief ready to send as an email. And then the inputs. So what are we going to take to like the recipe of what what we're cooking as inputs? So it could be, what are we going to look at using the rate sheet here, then do this. And then 3 is the specifics. And this is a better way to kind of visualize what that looks like. So building the prompt for Cowork, we need a deliverable. In this case, we have, could be a few different things. It could be a 4-page memo. It could be a slide for, my quarterly business review. It could be just like a ranked list. And then the deliverable or the inputs for those deliverables could be Q3 competitive review folder, last quarter's memo as format reference, or analyst call, et cetera. And then some of the nuance that might help Cowork. So if you put all these together, then we have a really solid prompt and what Cowork truly helps out with the best. And then during Cowork, since it's spawning these agents, it's actually creating like this task list to go ahead and facilitate that work. It's going to ask you a few things during the session to help steer you in a specific way into Cowork. And Cowork kind of has a similar interface. There's going to be a few different items that you're going to see that are going to be different, like just in terms of how it functions in an agentic way. So we have the same projects folder. You're going to notice the projects within Cowork and chat are going to be different projects. So they're not going to be overlapping projects, or it's not going to pull the projects from chat into Cowork. It's going to be completely different set of projects because it really behaves differently. Scheduled. So these are going to be scheduled tasks. So what you're able to do with Cowork is actually keep a set of scheduled tasks. So if there's a specific output you need on a regular basis. It could be daily. It could be weekly. Could be monthly. Then create a scheduled task, and Cowork will go through and actually do that task for you, show you what a scheduled task looks like. And this is going to be a daily brief. So I said, hey, send me a daily brief based off of what's in my Google Calendar, based off of what's in my Gmail inbox. Send me a brief and say, hey, what do I need to do today? What's going to happen today? And it'll actually kick off and run that brief. So if I go into Claude for Mortgage Pros, it kicked off. You'll see in the recents this daily brief that just happened. And this actually, I think it scanned my personal email, but you kind of get the idea. Is it went through, it created this daily brief, and it gives me a the open items in my inbox. In this case, is like a utility bill that I'd sent my property manager, for one of the properties that I have. And it shows it did like this snapshot of what I need to do or what I have outstanding for this day. And it says no action because there's no specific action items. But you can imagine if you have a bunch of different action items, this will surface those. And same thing for your calendar. So it'll scan your calendar. It'll show you what you have open, what you have, to do that day. So this could kick off every day, in this case, at 9 a.m. Okay, so we're going to get into the kind of the anatomy of of what that Cowork session looks like. And to do that, so what I did is created this prompt for Cowork to go through. This is a little bit of a detailed prompt, but using that same framework of the deliverable, the inputs, and the nuance for the prompt. I created this really robust prompt. And what I'd recommend folks do, just use chat to actually help structure the prompts. So say, hey, I'm creating this prompt to do this deliverable. Help me to make it really robust for Cowork. But this prompt just nets out to be, it's asking Cowork to go through, create a list of different agents in the Boise area, create a PDF one-pager that says rate updates. So it's going to have a rate update one-pager that it creates. It creates a spreadsheet using the agent name. It's actually going to scrape Google to do that. It creates that PDF. And then it's actually going to create and draft 10 Gmail to my outbox to those agents referencing this rate update and specific in the Boise area here. So it's doing a few different things. It's like creating a spreadsheet. It's creating a one-page PDF, and then it's creating 10 Gmail drafts in my outbox. So you can imagine how good this is going to be for your outreach if you use correctly. You can see on the right-hand side, the steps that it's going to take to go and do all of those things all in one. This took about like 10 minutes to do, but it used all these different tools, Gmail, Google Drive, Appify, and a web search. It used these underlying skills to create the PDF, and then it created the drafts in my inbox. So this went ahead and scanned the internet for the different rates for the week. It showed the prior week to this week and changed in basis points. And then it created a table of, I said, go scrape and find at least 10 agents in the Boise metro area with the highest Google ratings. Go find their names, their contact information, and some of the notes from those Google reviews. And that's what it did. And what it's going to do is actually draft all those emails into Gmail. So it just drafted all of those emails. See here, it drafted all of those sample emails through reviews. All these people say, they had a good experience with rental to purchase clients. Here's an update. It actually attached that image, that the rate update one pagers that we put together to that email. But look at my inbox. It's have 20 emails ready to send, all personalized to these people with their specific information and just like a little bit of a reference to their reviews. So really easy to do, and it's just sitting in your outbox ready to either edit or just like send automatically. And I can just hit send. So you can kind of see the power here where I was able to send one prompt. It goes through, creates the one pager, creates the draft, creates the goes and scans for their business, their reviews, personalizes it to some degree, and then I can just send it. So if you can imagine, if this does this on autopilot, for instance, if you were to schedule this, then you would be able to just have fresh outreach ready to go at any given time. really, really powerful if done correctly. I actually turned into a skill as well. So if I hit backslash and go into realtor rate outreach, I can then invoke this anytime and say, hey, do this for the, I don't know, Meridian submarket. That's also near Boise. Meridian submarket, do this realtor outreach. It'll go through and scrape Apify, draft the emails, create that PDF specific to that metro. And then I have all this fresh data ready to go in my outbox to actually automate my outreach. As a broker, this could be super helpful for just, keep getting new deal flow. And you can imagine, what this would look like if you were to automate all the different parts of your business. What we showed is just that simple delegation, the agentic work that is done by itself. And then you can make it permanent. So you can actually do this in perpetuity with scheduled tasks, invoking different skills over time, etc. Might ask, is this safe with my client data? Probably an important question. What I always urge people to do, test. On Anthropic's enterprise plans, all of your information is siloed, so it lives in different buckets within their hosting service. So none of this information is being used to train the data of other clients. It's all within your own system, but that's just as long as you're using the enterprise mode. And I always recommend, for instance, like that underwriting workflow that we went through. How do I know that this is going to be the exact result? You always test it with real data and then do the calculation yourself and then see how it matches up with how Claude did. And so there's a framework to actually say, okay, this matches up to what Claude output versus my output, or it doesn't. And then you can tweak the system and just make sure it gets it exactly right the next time. So there's like an iterative process to coaching Claude to get the right answers. But yeah, that's something that's, I guess, more of an art than a science, is really just guiding the LLM to make sure the information is as correct as possible. The third thing that matter is Claude. The chat function should be your thinking partner, just bouncing ideas off of a wall. Coworker is really your delegation layer, and the colleague, that the junior analyst that goes off and does work. And then skills and scheduled tasks turn those workflows into kind of repeatable infrastructure that help your business to the fullest. So like I mentioned at the beginning, my company really helps to implement this in your business. We've done this for commercial real estate, private equity firms, for realtors, for brokerages, and a lot of the mortgage industry as well. So if anyone wants hands-on help, my company, Private Market, is happy to assist you guys. Usually jump on a phone call, just kind of understand your workflow, and then dig into how AI would help from there.